All right, all right, all right. Welcome back to another exciting episode of the HHC podcast. I am your host, Jacob Moreno, and I'm here with my brothers Chris and Juan. Chris, how you doing today?
Good, a little tired. I had a opportunity to go and be a part of my alumni band for UTSA yesterday at their game versus UTEP, and got a chance to like march the pregame, march the halftime. Not a full on production like they would do, but just like a little bit of baby version of it. So it was fun to get a chance to go and play again and kind of get my legs tired from marching again. And to be honest, the best part was probably feeling the rumble and the energy when you're in the tunnel and like the game's about to start. It was rowdy back then, and it was pretty rowdy today, or sorry, yesterday too. So it was cool to be able to see some of those younger guys and all the things that I was a part of it when I was there about 8 years ago, and some of the traditions that have stayed, and some of them that have evolved, and some that are just brand new and different and crazy. And it was a fun weekend.
For sure. That sounds cool, man. No, same thing. For me, I'm coming up a little tired just because of last home game was yesterday for Tech.
Hmm.
We're bowl bound and stuff, so it was a very exciting game because we were just competitive all night against OU, and then it being Oklahoma too, like is just a big game all around for us to get a good victory in, and so it was definitely a wild night to say the least, and it's
Did
always
it?
wonderful to like experience it for the first time.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Did it have any like implications on where your bowl game would be or any of that?
Yeah, it does. So us winning gives us a better chance at like going to a place like Orlando for the bowl game.
Mm.
So we're hoping that that's like where the cards fall. We really want to be out of state this year.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah,
Juan,
so same for the UTSA. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
there you
They've
go.
been having a great season. I jump in the game and they're losing 24-0. I was like, dang man, like this is like the worst game to come to. Uh, then they slow walk them down, ended up tying it up going into the fourth, and then pull it out in the fourth. So it was exciting game.
Nice, nice. Juan, what about you, man? How you been?
I'm still recovering from Thanksgiving. I'm still tired. All that
Yeah,
food
man.
really like weighs me down, makes me feel really sluggish, and that's all I've been eating the last couple of days. So it is,
You just been like feeding yourself your own poison too, just like
yeah, yep, that's about it.
No kidding, man. Them Thanksgiving leftovers.
just get
I
into a food coma and watch some Spurs beat downs.
Yep.
and I'm sure there's a lot more just because I'm not there to eat them either. So you know, you're so lucky for you.
Yeah, Thanksgiving was
But
good.
that's awesome. But yeah, we come to you guys live every Sunday mornings at 10 a.m.s, where we do go live on the platforms of Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. All of which, if you cannot catch us during our live times, you can watch the VODs on all three of those platforms shortly thereafter. Make sure that you do follow us on Twitter at Heroes Half Court, where we do talk about the Spurs and during the games on the near daily. Uh, Go ahead and interact with us, man. We love to have the engagement, and we like talking basketball with everybody. So, um, but through another week of losses, I uh, I still do come on here, and I have to give us our weekly trivia challenge. This is where a through the season thing where I'm keeping score for our guys for Juan, Chris, and our brother Josh, who isn't on here right now. But we I give them some trivia. I try to test to see if they know their stuff about our current Spurs right going into it. But then I also have a couple questions for our past Spurs. So this week I really wanted to dive into our assist numbers and just to see like what where you guys think how our guys really play through a very ball movement centered system. And so for my first question this week, I want to know how many assists do y'all think, and this is per game, how many assists per game do you think our centers as a whole get? So that is a total of Jakob, Zach Collins, Gorgie, and Charles Bassi. How many assists per game do those guys, all four, get? Um, the San Antonio Spurs as a whole are, if I'm not mistaken, second in the league in assist right now at 28.3. They just got beaten out by the Golden State Warriors, who I think have like 29. Um, but we had been leading the league for a minute there on our assist numbers,
And you want to
and
know how
so
many assists are like our centers responsible for? Is that what you said?
yes, exactly. Um, and so yeah, we're actually we're tied technically at 28.3 assists with the Indiana Pacers, who also have 23.8. And then just under those two teams, we have the Denver Nuggets at 27.7, the Kings at 27.7, Pelicans at 27.4. So we've kind of come down to earth just a little bit more, but it's still, still doing pretty good on that.
And we were without Trey for a stretch, and even just to talk about your center question, like Yak is a man who is a pivot man and tries to make good reads off of his touches and stuff too. So understandably,
For sure, for sure. Well, Juan, do you have your answer in?
I do.
let me see real
All right,
quick. I
cool, cool,
think
cool.
Josh. I'm gonna put his up first.
So Josh says that we have a full 7 assists per game. I'll do because this number is going to be, I feel like it's going to be pretty different. So whoever's the closest to that number, I'm going to give them the point for the week, right?
Mm.
But yeah. So Juan, go ahead. Show us your answer. Juan says that it's 6.2. Josh says
Uh,
that it's 7. And Chris, how many assists do you think? 6.3. Man, you guys, what are y'all doing? Y'all like telepathically like
yeah, yeah.
keeping up with
This is
each
like the
other on the
second, or
numbers,
maybe even like third week in a row or something.
or y'all are like
We're
right
being that.
next to each other on this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say y'all are severely underballing our centers here.
Yeah.
Uh, Josh actually gets the point just because he has the highest number.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And that number is 9.4 assists per game.
Mm.
Wow.
So Jakob has 3.5 assists. Zach Collins has 2.5 assists. Gorgie Dang has 1.8 assists, and Charles Bassey has 1.8. And that all equates up to the 9.4.
I see. I see. I think I was kind of dividing the team up between like wings, point guards, and bigs. Okay, so if we're at 28, you divide that by three. Uh, and then I was like sliding the number around there. But to be honest, we probably don't have as much coming from point guard because it's just Trey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, you're right on that in that sense, and I mean even then, like uh, I'll I'll kind of get into that a little bit right here, right? But so right, Trey's obviously going to be leading our assist numbers. If you add Trey and Devin Vassell, do you think you have more assists or less assists than those 9.4 assists?
More.
So just adding up. Okay, you say more, Juan. What do you think?
More.
Okay. Uh, sorry. Let's see if Joshua. I'll give him a second, real quick. But both of y'all think that's more. Um, and yeah. Okay. I'll say that it is indeed more. So both of y'all will get that point. They Oh, so Josh says less right there. Okay, so Josh says less, and both of y'all say more. How much more? How many more assists do you think? 9.4. That one's a can we know Trey has a high assist number. Uh, Devin obviously isn't like a high assist number, but he still has a good couple assists, and it being more than the 9.4. There's
I'll just
still.
I'll just say like 13. Or sorry, my fault. We should have wrote my bad.
So you said they have 13. Juan, what were you saying?
I just said point 0.5 more.
Point 0.5 more. That was if we had Devin Vassell or not Devin Vassell, if we had Trey Jones and Keldon Johnson, you'd be like almost there because I think they add up to like 10.1 assists. But Devin and Trey add up to 10.7 assists because
Oh, I was
Devin
way off.
Vassell averages 3.6 assists per game and Trey Jones puts up 7.1 assists. So that's 10.7. And that is if my numbers are correct, that's like 1.3, right? 1.3 more assists. So, um, Keldon Johnson has like 3.1 assists per game, and that's where it like drops down, or not 3.1. He has da, 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 da. Keldon Johnson has 3 on the dot, and so then that like drops it down to the 10.1, which is what 7.7. So just a couple digits off of what you said, Juan. Um, but yeah, I mean, like Chris was saying about trying to divvy up who's distributing the ball a lot. Trey Jones by himself was almost adding up to the amount that our big men are getting, and so while we are moving the ball a lot, I think it's pretty cool to see that Trey Jones is he's really stepping into that point guard role for us. But we do have okay. So real quick, so I can tally up these points right. I think I had given Josh had gotten that point for being the closest on the 9.4. Both Chris and Juan said more, which gives them the point on that. And then nobody was able to get close to that number for the more assist or whatever. But everybody knows the San Antonio Spurs have always been a pretty ball movement centric style of system, and we've really shown that being pretty high up on the leaderboards for assists per game as a team. So over the last 10 years, so from starting from the 2012-2013 season up to the 21-22 season, how many years have we been top 5 in assists per game? So over the last 10 years, how many years have we been top 5? Um, I will say we never dropped below top 20 ever in those 10 years. Uh, and so that I think that shows that we pretty much, we do we do distribute the ball a lot. We do make sure that no one person is going to be holding the ball, making it ISO ball, and not having too many. Josh already answered this one right here. He put up 5 as his number. Chris, what do you say?
6.
So Chris goes with 6, and Juan goes with
6.
6. Well, that point again goes to Josh,
Dang.
who said 5. Because the San Antonio Spurs led the league in assist in the 2012-2013 season, in the 2013-2014 season. Then we were top 5 in the 14-15 season, where we were 4th, in the 15-16 season, where we were 5th, and last year in the 21-22 season, where we were 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
So that was 5 years out of the last 10. In 16-17, we ended in the top 10. In 17-18, that's where we took our dip, where we dropped down to 18th. The next year, we move up to 16th. The year after that, up to 13th, and then dropping back down to 15th in the 2021 season.
So
again,
it's like 5 in the last 10, but 1 in the last 5.
yes, yeah, no, it's that's like pretty much just like we were pretty ball movement, obviously during the beautiful game years,
Yeah.
in that 13-14 year, and then right around those, and then yeah, just like you're saying, last year whenever DeJounte was pretty much nearly leading the league in assists, just doing his thing.
Mm.
But yeah, so like I said, I really wanted to just kind of show the assist numbers. The Spurs have always really shown that kind of a style of play. We don't really play iso ball too much, and honestly, the years that we did play iso ball with DeMar,
Yeah.
those are the years that they kind of dipped. So,
Yeah, for sure.
but yeah, so we that was my weekly trivia for the week, and to talk about assist, and to bring it into our guys on the team currently. I brought him up earlier, and I do want to talk about him a little bit more now. And that's Trey Jones, because I want to know what your guys' what your guys' thought process is of Trey Jones' future with the Spurs. Like I said, He averaged 7.1 assists, but on his actual numbers, Trey Jones is putting up 12.2 assists on 41% shooting, 34% from the field or from the 3-point line. He's 90% from free throw. He has 3.4 rebounds, his 7.1 assists, only 2.1 turnovers, 1.5 steals, and even right now averaging zero point 0.2 blocks per game. Um, and to me, that's a big like
How many
stat
blocks per
jump.
game?
Point two.
Oh, did he said 1.2? I was like, what the heck? All
No,
right,
no, no,
all right,
not
go ahead.
1.2. But I like that's a huge jump from last year, and obviously due to circumstance, he has to be even more fulfilling of that point guard role. But I think that he's definitely stepped up in being the leader for us. And I want to hear your thoughts on just what you think the future could be with him. Juan, I'll let you start this off.
As far as Trey Jones' role in the future, um, if you look directly to like next season and you're hopeful and optimistic, you're probably replacing him with like a top 5 pick at the starting point guard. And I feel like Trey hasn't done anything wrong this year, and I think like he does his role well. It's just on in this lineup, that's kind of where you see the clear position that can be upgraded, like to add another star player or the star player, however people want to judge Keldon and Devin. And I feel like Trey could be the perfect backup, a perfect fill-in point guard. He can come into the lineup with whoever is left on the court off the bench and fit perfectly well for him. But he just he just still doesn't space the floor enough, and he's not quite big enough to, like you saw last night. I know LeBron's humongous, but like anytime he gets in those matchups, and he's like on anybody not 6'2" and shorter, like I feel like he gets he's a little bit of a liability sometimes, and I really love his game. I love the pace he brings. You can tell he when he's on the court, the whole team plays better. Now, if we can just add somebody else to where he can be on the court, in spots and minutes, I feel like it'll help this team. But next year, like I'm kind of hopeful for that Scoot Henderson guy with this team. If you keep Jakob and then you add that Scoot Henderson at the one, and this team just like now Trey's coming off the bench, and he I feel like he provides the same impact off the bench like last year. I feel like he did that last year. But as far as this year, I think he's fine as starting, just running with the guys. It just hurts because he's the only point guard out there, and then because he's the only point guard, and he's kind of limited. He can't shoot, and it hurts the team sometimes.
Yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying right there, and I definitely think the draft is what really affects the future of most of the guys that are going to be on that are like in this rotation and stuff like that. Other than like maybe like a Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, Jeremy, right? But at least like rotation wise, uh, and nobody's safe, right? Nobody's safe at all, and so then at that point you do have like you have to figure out through the draft what does that. And so then yeah, I agree. Like if it does fall down to where it's like Scoot, yeah, I mean I think moving a guy like Trey Jones back to the bench um is the way to go. Now at that point I want to know because like his brother, right? Like I feel like everybody's gonna compare Trey to Tyus at the end of the day. His brother has only like started 23 games max through the 21-22 season and then the 18-19 season. Those are the only 2 years that he ever started more than 20 games, right? And so um, does does putting Trey Jones like in this starting role right now, like do you think that he accepts that backup position if we do get that replacement for him, or do we have to move on? And in which case, are you okay with that? Are you fine with having that move on? Um,
When you compare him to Tyus, are you saying like you're saying because Tyus seems to be okay with that role, do you think Trey would also be? Is that what you're kind of saying?
yes, yeah,
I mean, here's the thing. Tyus is okay with that role when you got a guy like John Morant. You know what I mean? So, uh, to kind of lean on what Juan was saying, like if we get a guy like Scoot, there is no there's no choice. It's like you're cool with it, or you're gonna have to go somewhere else. You know what I mean? Like, so I mean, but I mean, I agree with what like with what Juan is saying about like some of his limitations. Um, and I also agree like that the draft is going to be the biggest factor because I mean, like I feel like him and Jakob are in the same position where they provide us great utility. Um, have a feeling. Well, Yak might be a little different. He might get a little bit more money, but I have a feeling that like we can get both of those, or both of those guys will turn into like valued players in terms of how much they're getting paid versus how much they're contributing. And that's not just for us, but for anybody who picks up Jakob is probably going to feel like they're paying less than what they should. Or and Trey also, I feel like no matter what the number lands on, they're probably going to outperform because it's just going to be a little bit on the lower end. But I don't know, like if we're also going to have to pay Devin in not next year, right? But the year after.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's in his third year, so we could sign into an extension next year, but he just it won't kick in until after next year.
Exactly. But I guess what I'm getting at is like if just in terms of how the Spurs is prioritizing their money, right? As in terms of their timeline and everything like that. If you're prioritizing paying Dev, now you've locked in Devin and Keldon to bigger money. You've kind of put your big money chips in, and not the biggest because they're not like max or anything, but you kind of put it into those wing players. Now, if you get a guy like Scoot, then probably you are going to try to find value in your center position. And now that makes Jakob the guy that you're trying to hold on with a good contract and blah, blah, blah. You flip that. If we go and get a guy like Victor or just a big man in general, now you're probably trying to find value in your point guard position. And Trey is one of those guys, right? You get what I'm saying? So I do think that he's got a place with us. And then it really is just determined on that draft. Who are we going to get? And then Jakob fills in the other spot, and vice versa. Trey would fill in the other spot. I'm down with him being just like Josh had put up, solid backup for the next 10. If he accepts that role, great. That would be an amazing value for us to have a stability in our backup point guard position. Especially after the things that happened this year that just changed how we thought things were going to go with our roster, right? So, but we'll see.
When
I agree. I love all the things that he brings from a point guard mentality, from a that I the only you ran down his stat list and I just wrote down it was like 2 point something turnovers. Like that's I love to see his ball security, his decision making. Like I would love for that kind of stuff to stick around.
we also got to see what Blake Wesley does this year when he comes back. If, like what Chris is saying, if we're not going to pay Trey Jones and they're comfortable with just letting Blake run the point off the bench next year, then yeah, they'll just let him walk.
Yeah, I mean that's a little tricky. It's kind of like what I was saying last week about like when we don't have Trey on the roster or when he's not on the floor and we just go out there with four bigs or something like that, and it just looks very discombobulated, and we can't even like get into certain things. Wesley, obviously it depends on his development, but like it would just feel weird. Like Trey is such a different player, like, or at least right now, right? Trey's more seasoned now. He just seems to have a lot more of that calm, and it feels like we would be taking steps backwards back into that young, maybe making mistakes with the ball in his hands kind of player. And it's like, and maybe the Spurs don't care about that because they're ready to be good 2 years from now or something like that. But I would prefer at this point just to see what Blake can do, but I mean, I wouldn't be so quick to just give him Trey's spot.
I think I'm in agreement right there, just because I feel like I do not want to see Trey go like so hastily, right? In that sense, because yeah, if we do end up getting a guard in front of him, I feel like yeah, like that's exactly um if I have to, I guess I wouldn't even say overpay, but if I just have to pay trade like a little bit more just so that he wants to stay as the backup point guard, then I'm willing to do that. Because I don't think his price is going to be that much higher as it is, you know. And so then at that point, just like Chris was saying with like the whole value standpoint, you know, you keep him on, and he's literally I mean, we've seen it through the years when we were talking about Derek and Dejounte and stuff like that, and how having one point guard on as your starter, one point guard on the bench, it makes things feel so much more comfortable through the games because there's somebody that you can trust to have the ball in your hand the entire time, and so it'll be the same way when we have that guy who's that step above Trey, and then Trey's right there to continue to carry that point guard load. So
Yeah, and we're gonna have money. We got 10 million going into are we paying Gallinari this year?
I believe
uh
so, because we just
Right,
yeah,
wait.
right. So that's we're gonna have money to find a good value for a good number for Trey. I honestly think we would have enough money to get Jakob onto a good contract as well, whether that means he stays with us or not. But I mean, like, sign him to a decent contract that looks good on our books, but also is tradable for both of those guys. I think it can easily happen for next year.
for sure. But yeah, no, and you were talking about the that like Jakob stuff, but like I don't know what do you think it looks like when if we don't get number one, we don't get number two, and it is like forward type stuff, and so then you are still I guess like pressured to keep Jakob, pressure to keep Trey,
I would do
and
both,
then
and I wouldn't even feel that pressured. Like I said, like I just feel like maybe they Jakob's representation, Trey's representation, maybe they have a little bit more leverage in terms of their negotiations, right? If we don't get Scoot or we don't get Victor, and the next best candidate is somebody who's a wing player or whatever. Now, if I'm Trey, I'm saying, well, you're not drafting a replacement this year. You know what I mean? If I'm Jakob, I'm saying you're not drafting my replacement, so I'm the guy. If you want me to be the guy, I would love for me to be the guy. This is what I want for it. You know what I'm saying? So, uh, it could raise their price a little bit if we don't, but I wouldn't feel pressured or I wouldn't feel backed into a corner to re-sign those guys at all, like Trey or Jakob.
yeah, that's good. Then I think we have that agreement that it's just like no matter no matter the circumstances with those guys, like you can move on with them, you can move on without them, but there's always going to be some nice little middle ground that you'll be able to be okay with the circumstances being for both Trey and Jakob, just because like you were talking about with the whole Victor situation too. You if you get him, that makes Jakob that much more expendable, where you feel a little bit more okay with letting him walk or whatever the case may be. So I agree with that.
And
Um,
and, and even if you sign him to a good contract, a good valued contract, it just makes it even more appealing to other people. Okay, so I'll give you a first round pick, knowing I'm going to get 3 years of Jakob Pertl. You know what I mean, or whatever. So yeah, I
for
think we're in
sure.
a good position with both of those guys.
Exactly. I'll finish this off by just having that like going to like the league leaning standpoint and stuff like that. But Trey is Trey's barely breaking 50 on the turnover leader list. So there's 49 other players in the guards category that that have more turnovers per game than Trey Jones. And Trey Jones is a starting point guard in the league. So that's like, you would expect it to maybe be like 30 in that sense because he would be, the guy that's handling the ball the most with other people.
Mhm.
But no, I mean, this guy's barely even breaking 50 for the top turnovers a game. And then when I go to assist leaders, um, you have your guys like James Harden, Tyrese Halliburton. Well, Tyrese Halliburton's making his jump, but James Harden through his only 9 having 10, and some guys just having some pretty solid numbers too. But Trey Jones is in top 15, so he's 13th on the list when it comes to assists per game for guards, So
And
I
and
think
for
Trey's
and
a
from a guy who from a guy who like our offensive production, we are banking on Devin Vassell and Keldon Johnson to lead us from that point of view, right? So his number one role is ball security, fluidity in the offense, making good decisions, and all that kind of stuff, right? So to see the jump in all the places that matter, uh, I think minus probably the outside shooting is still the one that we're waiting to come around just a little bit more. But again, like that one is even I would think even on his list, just a little bit lower at this point. You know what I mean? Even though at the beginning of the year it was like pretty high on all of our lists. We're like, we need Trey to start shooting. We need everybody to start shooting threes, which everybody has started shooting it. Now it's just if we make it, we look good. If we miss, we look terrible. Uh,
Hmm.
but for him to, again, for our offense to have to run through KJ and Devin, I'm cool with I'm cool with how his progression is going on his shot. Because he's doing so well in all the other aspects, you know what I mean? That from the point guard position. So I've been super pleased with Trey.
Exactly. And when you I don't have like the specific assist to turnover ratios, but just by eyeballing it right now, like other than a guy like Chris Paul, who is a freaking great point guard, Mike Conley, who is a savvy vet, like there's not many people that have better assist to turnover ratios than Trey Jones right now, that have more assists than him. So that's it, just like you're saying with that ball security, man. He's killer. He's been great this year, through the losses that we've had, through the great start that we had. That he's just been able. I feel like he's been able to stay consistent in what he's providing us.
Assist to turnover ratio is they just literally like that. They put assists on top divided by your turnovers or what?
Yes.
So I'm looking
Yes.
at this list, which shows 100 people. Yeah, the top 100. Uh, Corey Joseph has the highest value at 8.8. Chris Paul is number 2 at 6.3, and then down at position number 22 is Trey Jones.
And that's really good because, like you're saying, with Corey Joseph being the highest, well, Corey Joseph doesn't necessarily get minutes
Yeah,
for.
I'm trying to see who's the ones who would get minutes. Chris Paul, Monty Morris, Mike Conley, Derek White. Tyus is not is number 9. Fred Van Vliet. Then you got Brunson, Halliburton, even Dennis Smith Jr. kind of gets more touches this year, I think.
Yes.
Marcus Smart, Jimmy Butler, James Harden is right above Trey. And then let's see, is anybody like prominent below him? Mikal Bridges, Pascal Siakam, DeJounte Murray's 34. So yeah. Steph Curry's 40. So he's doing his thing.
Exactly. Trey's been putting up some good numbers, and I think we have to try to notice those kind of stuffs through the losses, because you know can't can't uh can't just disregard the year as a whole. Um you have to see what the developmental side's going to be for these guys, right?
Yeah.
But there is still stuff that like San Antonio is doing, for our stuff. We did it last week. We still want to talk about it this week. We had caught up with another episode of the Ring of the Row. This one titled the Captain Late episode. And Chris, I think you said that it was with James Silas, right? That was like mainly what it was about.
Yeah. Basically, just his career. His career prior to San Antonio, him coming to San Antonio, and the community kind of going rallying around him. It was a great episode to be able to kind of see like the people, when we see David or George and everything like that, they're standing still, they're older, and they're just kind of talking about it. So it's always great to see the clips and see them moving, and they mean it when they're like, oh yeah, they couldn't guard me, you know what I mean? Like, it's not just an old man talking, it's like, no, they had moves, so and actually one of my favorite parts was George Gervin speaking, and he said like, everybody always talks to me like I'm the original, like I'm the one. And he was like, but no, I'm not. He's like, he is, right? And he like gives his props to Silas as well. And they even said it too, like it was his team, and then George comes in and kind of becomes the number 2, and that is kind of what kicked, like, okay, we moved into from the ABA to the NBA. We want to kind of have a statement. They were trying to be a good team, and so that was like their move, right? Was they went and got George, and I think they were talking about how they led the league in scoring, like their first year was like 120 something points per game, and it was like what we see now, right? A lot of high flying, a lot of running up and down the court, shooting the threes and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that was a great episode. I'm curious because you said that you saw, or that you watched the or heard or whatever, the the podcast version, right? Or Bill does his long form kind of talks, and Silas was on there recently too. Like, um, I didn't get a chance to see that, so I'm curious as to like some of the things he was saying on that show.
It's kind of funny because it really was just like what you're saying, like he is just talking about how he like what he had to do to get himself situated in the transitions and stuff like that from the ABA to the NBA and stuff. Um, they talked a little bit about his about like his injury that happens to him,
Hmm.
and like what he had to like come to terms with. And certainly, just because it's been years away, he doesn't feel nearly as like upset about it. But he definitely like just talks about like he understood like after the injury. He was just like, well, now it's time to pass the baton. Right now it's time to give it to the next guy, and start seeing what my role can be, not as the number one option type stuff. um and it's pretty cool because he does just like, I mean, you get to just hear an old head talk ball, but it's also not a thing where you're like consistently going like, man, this guy's just like talking trash about like new age basketball. He's like, no, everything that they do now, I did then, and it's
Hmm.
cool. It's like awesome, and it's like, oh, you're right. Like, just like you're saying, where we are running fast tempo offenses and running up and down the court. He was talking about the shooting the three ball a lot with the ABA stuff. So um,
Yeah,
it's definitely been cool to get his perspective.
and they did talk about the injury a little on the video as well. And he said like he was like, or either he said or they had Bill Walton on there, which was kind of random, but Bill Walton was there talking about him a couple times. But one of them was saying like, yeah, like the NBA didn't get a chance to see him to his fullest, right? And he was saying like they got to see me on one leg instead of two legs, right? But I'm it's interesting that you had kind of said that he was self-aware enough to be like, okay, what, not only what is my role, because he mentioned that too. He said I can't just go over people anymore. Now I got to like lean to my left and I got to do this. And he was talking about adjusting his game as well. But more so from the point of view of like that passing the torch, right? And knowing when your time to be the leader and when your time to be the support is. And that's kind of the stuff that we saw very gracefully over the course of our David Robinson into Tim Duncan into Tony into Manu into, right, like all the way through Kawhi, like is kind of that process, and which probably got started with two big names like Silas and Gervin, way back when. So again, just like I've just enjoyed this kind of stuff because we've had a lot of things in the past. I don't know, probably since the Kawhi stuff, right? So what is that? 2017, 5 years almost. Um, we've had things along the way in the past 5 years. Some of them big, some of them small, but just like that, just try to not try, but that seem to kind of knock a little bit at like, is the Spurs culture as good as it says it is? Is this thing, operating as fluidly as they say it does, and all that kind of stuff. And so and yeah, obviously it's kind of biased, right? Because the Spurs people are the ones who like edited the video and created the whole thing, and I get all that. But just to kind of show that the seeds of all the things that we hold valuable now in terms of how we do our business, they started a long time ago, and they were done a long time ago by some of these other guys too. So it just kind of it makes me feel good knowing that it's not just like something that we started 20 years ago with Tim, and now people, or that it feels like it's easy to kind of go away or it's in danger of going away. It's like, no, we've had good and bad teams from way back in the day, but we've had those good foundational like moments and characters along the way that's where it really did start. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of been one of my biggest takeaways from all these older interviews that they've been doing, and all that kind of stuff, is just to kind of just keep tracing that line backwards with all the things that I love about the team, and seeing that they've been doing it for a long time, well before I was aware of it. So I've definitely enjoyed these little talks they've been having.
For sure. No, it's great to see that like the culture really does stem from way back when. You're not like, it isn't a thing that just like started with Tim Duncan. Like Tim Duncan didn't create this franchise that like was, like everything comes from him, and then like That's it, right? There's still history behind Tim Duncan that shows the culture, of things that definitely I'm glad, like, he was able to just like see it and be like, oh wow, I can literally um fit right into this culture. You know what I mean? Like it's like a thing of like we just like you're saying, we just saw it get passed down from generation to generation, and so
Yeah, and I
um
wonder I wonder how much of that stuff Pop, like kind of talked to Tim about, like when you everybody kind of knows about Pop going to the Virgin Islands to kind of meet with Tim and talk with Tim and all that kind of stuff prior to him coming, and yeah, I wonder how much of that stuff he let him know about like early on, right, and the things that he could help grow and build off of and all that kind of stuff.
especially when again it is like we know you're going to be number one pick. We know that like you are supposed to be the leader of a
Yeah,
franchise, like.
so it's like other than the basketball, which that's the given, that's the known. These are all the other things, right? And this is what takes you beyond the number one, because like if you're a first round pick, a late first round pick, early second round pick, it's easy to have that chip on your shoulder, right? You got passed up by almost every team, or probably every team, and all of those things, right? And so you're eager to show on a competitive standpoint what people were missing out on, how you can improve your upward trajectory, right? And so if you're a number one player, you have to have a different set of motivation. You have to have a different set of goals to have to move upward, right? Because the basketball part is almost a given. People, that's an expectation. They want you to go out there and dominate and perform every night. So for him, I would be curious to know like how much of that old school Spurs culture and all that was a priority for Pop to kind of explain to Tim back in the day of like this is where we really want you to shine.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, just because, yeah, like we're finishing up on that Ring of the Royale take and stuff like that. There was like another video that I saw earlier this week. We kind of talked about it not too long ago. It was like the secret base stuff.
The beef
Um,
history,
yeah, the beef history, right?
yeah,
And
part
so
two came
so
out.
they dropped that part two, and it's something that I kind of want to shout out just because it feels like it's a video that I've seen that I saw, and it felt like it was as like in the middle as it could be. Um because it shows like what like the Spurs culture wants people to be, but then it also shows like how we can kind of be a little like just a little stingy on like, well, don't stray too far away from our values kind of thing. And so it shows that like at least like the like our organization, we definitely have like a lot of pride in trying to be as good as we can be, especially towards our players. But we're not perfect, right? We're not perfect, and we will make some mistakes and things that'll like that'll cause things, right? And so I think the secret base video really showed that like it wasn't, it is really a both parties thing. It wasn't just Kawhi's party, and it wasn't just the San Antonio Spurs party that made the disconnect happen. But it definitely gave me a better insight on like, okay, like I do love this organization, but it is true, like there are definitely things that you can look at and be like, oh man, if we just kind of changed up our ways a little bit back then, you know, maybe there is something different that could happen. Um, but it's very interesting to see that kind of stuff, and then again, shout out to Secret Base for them to not just completely trash us, but also not completely give us, the Spurs were saints, the Spurs were angels, So it's things like that make me enjoy being like a fan of the Spurs, because at least we do keep ourselves up to a high standard, and sometimes we don't meet that high standard.
Yeah, Juan, did you check out the beef history?
No, I have not seen it.
I would agree. Like it's close to the middle. There's a few things in there that I didn't like too much. Just the okay. So well, one of them he pulled back. So it was like, and then the Spurs go back to their hating ass ways, right? He said it like that, and that one I was like, and then right after that he goes, that's sports fandom for you, and I was like, yeah, you're right. Okay, and we just keep rolling, right? Like you mentioned it a little bit about like not straying too far from our values, kind of thing. Um, I wasn't a big fan of like the way he said that. He said something like how we expect unwavering loyalty. I don't know, it's like the way he said that. That part, it was like, it's not even just about being loyal to the Spurs. It was just about like, it was just about the like literally as the things were playing out. You know what I'm saying? Things were just done in a very different way. I mean, to this day, you'll probably get 60%, 50 or 40 to 60% of the Spurs fandom saying it's not that he left, it's how he left, right? And so it was all right. Yeah, I agree. It was pretty close to the middle. I was interested to watch the second half because the first half didn't really talk about Uncle Dennis at all. Just kind of set up everything. And then this episode was the one that was more like uh diving in a little bit deeper to the rifts between the going to New York when he was healing up and all that kind of stuff. And they did put it on Kawhi a little bit about like his people pulling him away and being unavailable, right? Not just from a on the court standpoint, but from all the other stuff. Um, I'll to this day I'll defend Manu Ginobili's comments, right, about we need to prepare as if he's not coming back. I don't think that crossed the line at all. I think that's the right mindset to have, especially as they were going into the postseason. Right? It's like you got to generate game plans, you got to generate scouting reports, and who's going to do what. And so, if that's the case, you have to plan as if the guy who hasn't been there all year is not going to be there, right? So, that part, I will defend him all day on that. The Tony stuff too. The Tony, I'll give you 10% of maybe you can be offended by Tony's comments, but part of it I think is a little bit of like that's how Europeans talk. I don't think I think it might feel a little hyperbolic and a little insulting, but I don't think it was with malintent for him to be like, yeah, I had the same injury and it was 100 times worse. I don't think it was like I'm 100 times more dedicated to the Spurs than Kawhi, which is kind of how people took it, or I'm 100 times stronger than Kawhi, or Kawhi's 100 times more blah 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 than me. I don't think that that's what it was, but eh, it's old, so it was fine. It was fun to just kind of watch it more from a, all right, if I'm not a Spurs fan and I'm just like diving in, am I going to learn something from this? Is it anything new? And then as a Spurs fan, it's like you go in there with your defenses up, right? Like, all right, are you gonna say this in a way that doesn't make us look like we did all of the wrong because we know that's not how it went and all that kind of stuff. So it was fine. Uh, uh, um, with all the Spurs stuff that's coming out, like the Ring of the Row and the other podcasts and stuff like that, and I've been trying to dive in more to the positive stuff, but at least I don't know, at least some mainstream people are talking about the Spurs, and that's fine too, I guess. So
I haven't watched it, and I don't want to speak on the video. But as far as like the stuff with like Kawhi and how other fans perceive like our actions, I'm curious to see how the Clippers and their players are going to treat it when it's the same exact situation going into the postseason this
yeah.
year, and Kawhi's not there and he hasn't been there, and it's just natural where it's like, well, I'm out here, I've been hurt too, and I come out here and play.
Yeah, and I don't think that we even like in those kind of talks, like our players kind of having that mindset. It probably was like on a scale of 1 to 10, like a 2, and it just got revved up so big of like everybody has this like big riff, and so like what you're saying, there probably will be players who feel like that on his current roster, and it'll be interesting to see are people gonna try to drive a wedge as hard as they did with Kawhi and the Spurs, because it did happen. Like as soon as mainstream markets get a hold of, oh, Kawhi might not want to be in San Antonio, let's get him out. What I mean, everybody is, let's save him. How many people were asking Giannis to leave Milwaukee even though they're doing well? You know what I'm saying? So like it's natural. So it is what it is. That part of it will always suck, and I'll always have the middle finger up to the mainstream media and to the big markets for that part of it, because we don't get a chance to partake in that part because we are the small, right? So from that point of view, I'm always riding with the Spurs on that. But you know, they did talk a little bit about him and like and how he had his way in getting out, but how it translated into him ending up in LA anyway, and now how he's kind of running into injury problems and hasn't been on the court a lot over there. So they talk about it a tiny bit. I am interested though, like they highlight on that video, they specifically kind of frame it from the point of view of like when they talk about the Spurs organization, they always like show a picture of Pop and kind of they kind of like they framed it the way that on that video they kind of just like personify the Spurs with Popovich. That's kind of how they did it. So uh, they talked a lot about Pop's relationship with Kawhi and how as that if that was strong, then we were strong, and if that was falling away, then we were falling. That was kind of like, at least from when I was watching it, that's kind of how they framed it a little. Um, and you know, we talked about it a little bit when Juan wasn't on the show, but like he came on after we played the Clippers last week or 2 weeks ago, and like said some things about the Spurs that I just hadn't heard. We hadn't heard that in a long time, right? Like usually when it's about the Spurs, it's like it's just another team, blah blah blah. It's my old team, and we move on, right? And so for him to kind of, I don't know if Juan, if you saw that when he was talking about like somebody had asked him who would be a better coach or who would be a coach first, Timmy or Manu, and he had said like, oh for sure Manu, like not Tim, like Manu
Yeah.
would have this, and so like him hearing him just talk about the players that way, and then him talking about Pop that way. I bet there are gonna, and and also because time has passed, there's more time. I feel like there are going to be a lot of Spurs fans and people in general who kind of just soften up to the whole situation in general. Um, and sure, maybe we're at that time now that it's okay for some people to feel like that.
For
Not
sure, for
me.
sure. Well, as we start wrapping up, we didn't necessarily talk too much about how our current Spurs are doing. Um, there is like obviously like when you're losing games, you have to like it's really hard to like just figure out what there is to like really bring to the table and like discuss and stuff like that. But we're definitely seeing Keldon Johnson from this last game at least kind of have like a better bounce back game from the last couple weeks. I think he's been like on a little bit of like a slow burner when it came to his 3 point shot and stuff like that. And and I just want to know if there's anything that y'all are seeing, stuff that's like kind of come to your attention through the weeks that like
Well, it's no secret. Keldon he's hurting us. He's not playing good. This whole month of November, I was just looking at the split stats. From in October, he played 7 games. He averaged 23.9 points, 5.4 rebounds, and 4.1 assists on 45% from the field and 43% from three. In the month of November, 12 games, which we've only won 1 game this month, and that was against Milwaukee with no Giannis.
Mm-hmm.
Keldon has averaged 18.3 points per game, 4.7 rebounds, 2.3 assists on 37% from the field and 32% from three. So he's had a major drop off, and it kind of affects this team. Obviously, we've been missing bodies like throughout the month. Um, Injuries ever since we like won like 4 out of 5 games. We just haven't had anybody
Yeah,
like we
no
haven't had
no
a clear,
consistency.
yeah, we haven't had a clear like injury report. It's just it's hard to play like that. I get it. But when all that stuff is happening and your best player is struggling, like that just compounds it. It's exponential like factors to hurt you. And Devin's picked it up, or he's kind of maintained. He's actually has a little bit better numbers in November, and Jakob's same thing with him. It's really, to me, it just is like it falls on Keldon. Some of these guys are out, but that's what happens when you're the number one guy. You got to overcome those type of things, and he's fallen short, and it's frustrating when he chunks up like those rainbow threes and like they rim in and out, and you're like oh he's almost there, or like he drives to the basket and he's like just even last night against the Lakers he still shot under 40%, and it was like he's getting to his spots. He's taken he's forced a couple of shots over this stretch, but like
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he's getting to his spots and he's trying to make winning plays, and I don't know, it's growing pains. That's what happens when you're the number one guy, and it's gonna help him. And then like if this team adds another guy or like a top 5 pick, and maybe they're the number one guy, it's still going to put Keldon in a position to complement that, to be this guy doesn't have it this night, I can take over. And like it's preparing him for those moments going forward in the future. But just during this stretch right now, that's what I wanted to bring up, and that's what's frustrated me is it's a big drop off
Yeah.
this month from last month to start the season.
And it is cool that, like you said, it's his growing pains. It is cool that like we've gotten to see the first obstacle for him to get over when he got into the league was like getting those blinders off and stop just running into the paint 100 miles an hour and start to see what's going on around you. And then we started to see more of that last year. And then it was like, okay, now let's start to get your shooting and trying to find your stuff. And then we started to see more of that, right? And now it's like continuing to okay, now we have to continue to see consistency in terms of your percentage. We need you to make those things. And then from a leadership standpoint too, like that's how you're going to lead us through. So it has been good to see that he's had like new things to improve on every year. Um, and you do feel for the guy, man, because like he makes us feel good when he's making shots. He's out there yelling, he's out there hyping, and it's a compound thing in a good way, right? So, we'll be there for him. We'll just wait it out, and obviously, like you said, playing that way in terms of the inconsistency with the lineups, man, it's been so tough. Last night, we get a game against the Lakers with no AD, and there was a big a hole in their paint, right? And we were dominating the paint at the in the first half or first, yeah, I think first half, looking really good, and then boom, Yacht goes down. It's like, okay, so now there's no bigs out there. So now the Lakers kind of turned it on and started to drive more and feel more confident getting to the rim and all that kind of stuff. And so it is what it is, man. It's been tough, but we're here. If in terms of Jakob, man, I've been a little disappointed in just the frequency of his like swipe down fouls and those getting caught reaching and all that kind of stuff. It's like if I'm a 7 footer, and I know that Sean always talks about it too and everything like that, but like I literally, if I'm Pop, like I'm telling the same way that they went so far on to the left to avoid the James Harden get your hands out of the way, to the point where it was like when you guard James Harden, they would do this. They would like put their hands way up here. They would put their hands way back here to like show the ref like I'm not touching on this guy, right? And it kind of, you could tell that it came from the coaching staff. Like, this is our philosophy. I better not see you reaching on James Harden. Like, that's what it looked like, right? Like that. So if I'm a 7 footer and I'm the coaching staff, it's like I will sit you down if you reach. Get your hands in the air, and if they make it over you, who cares? You know what I'm saying? Like that would be what I tell him. So to see like how many times we've had these little touch fouls in crucial parts of games, that compounded with, man, some of his passes this past couple weeks had just been like real careless and just discombobulated. You know what I mean? Catch the ball, one hand, try to shove it to somebody who turns around at the wrong time, and those kind of things. Like, overall, I mean, and maybe it's just coming from the lineups that we have, right? I'm not as used to playing with this guy and so on, but those are the little things that when you're already playing bad, it just makes it worse. When you're already incomplete, it makes it worse. You know what I mean? So we're gonna have struggles regardless. We don't need to be shooting ourselves in the foot. You know what I mean? But that's what young teams do. So
Yeah, no, I'm a piggyback off the Jakob stuff just a little bit, just because I feel like in total I think his defense has kind of dropped a little bit, um, and I'm always trying to figure out like whether or not I want to be in defense of Jakob, or if I want to try to be like, well, I'm gonna hold you to this higher standard, right? Um, because it is like a thing of like, well, we're one of the worst defensive teams in the league, but this guy's supposed to be like one of the best defensive centers in the league. Like, how does this what's not translating here? Like what
The
is
perimeter
being
guys
the
can't
outlier?
defend.
And
yeah,
yeah, like to me it's like always been like the perimeter guys, they have not been able to put Jakob in the right position. But then to me there's still times where I'm like just watching the one of the Lakers games through the week, and seeing Jakob get torn up by a guy like Anthony Davis, and it's like, yeah, obviously Anthony Davis is good. By no means am I saying that he's bad, and he's having a better year than the last, like, I think like 2 years or the last year really. um but again, you're supposed to be one of the best defensive centers in the league. You got to hold your own one on one, right? Um, I didn't get to catch the Pelicans game, but that's always one to look out for, with their big man situation too. Because Jonas always kills, to me. Jonas always kills Jakob whenever they're playing against each other, and so I don't know how well he did against him, but again, it's just like through the the month, I've been like just a little bit like, hey man, like what's the deal here? Because you're just like you're kind of getting beat off by centers that I wouldn't want you getting beat by. Like again, I have such high praise for you. I want him to be. I want to always try to argue that this man's top two defensive center in the league. When do I give him the pass, and when do I start holding him up to that higher standard of like, you got to live up to it, right?
Yeah. So speaking of like paint production or whatever from that game, Jonas Valanciunas in 26 minutes gives you 22 and 10, and then obviously the big thing of the night was Zion Williamson gives you 32 and 11, and that, to be honest, I honestly don't even really remember, and it probably did happen of Valanciunas getting his way a lot of the times against Jakob specifically, but it was just hard to focus on anything other than we had zero answers for Zion, and he was out there bullying Sohan, Keldon big time, to the point where I felt, man, it was a little embarrassing, man. Bill Land was out there trying to justify the name Big Body, because he's out there getting thrown around.
Yeah.
So it's been kind of frustrating. I wrote on my notes for this week. I just said Spurs are getting bullied by guys like Zion, AD, LeBron, like the big names of the league right now, or of the past and everything. And it definitely feels, we don't have Josh here today, so there's no like other perspective, but it kind of feels like being a little brother at times. You know what I mean? Where there are days where everything that you do is not good enough. You know what I mean? Maybe in a fight, or maybe in an argument, or maybe in a and that's kind of how it goes, right? And sometimes when you're in that position, your hope is that one day you can grow into a place where now you can have something for your own, right? And you can kind of speak for your own and do for your own. And so that's how I felt as a younger brother growing up many times in my life. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure you guys have felt like that before as well. And that's kind of what it feels like for the Spurs, man. We just got to, every day we got there, and knowing that we're shorthanded, but you go and you just fight anyway, and you learn what you can learn, and you wait for that day that you're old enough. You know what I'm saying? So I got a lot of sympathy and a lot of empathy for the team.
For sure. And again, I mean, those are just some of the little things that we've noticed through the month, through the week, and stuff like that. But there's still certainly lots of good to be had through these games, because again, we were talking about Trey Jones' production so far. Like Juan was saying with Devin Vassell's numbers, I honestly haven't talked about Devin Vassell too much, but it's because he's living up to my expectations and still just keeping it up. So there's nothing for me to be like, I don't need to come on every week and be like, hey, Devin Vassell's still just as good as Devin Vassell's been. You know what I mean? I'm just happy that Devin Vassell's out there scoring buckets. Every now and then I feel like maybe I could see him play a little bit better defense, but still just seeing him on his improvement from his second year to this third year, So very, very exciting stuff. And then Jeremy Sohan, man, I think every week he impresses. Every single week he impresses. No matter what the situation is, no matter where in the fire that you're throwing him in, man had to guard LeBron 3 games this week. So
before he left last night's game with the injury, he had 3 straight games with double figures. And that may not sound like much to some people, but the expectations of him offensively, like for him he was 12, 12, and 13, 3 straight games, and on decent, shooting percentage. He's not chunking up like shots. He's forced to take some of those threes. They leave him that wide open. Sometimes they look good. I like the confidence he takes just pulling up. He's not afraid. But go ahead.
And he's already got a little bit of that Matt Bonner, like, you run me off the three, I got a little tiny hook in my game. I got a couple little moves to kind of at least try, right? So, yeah, I agree. His progression's been great. His attitude is great. He's another one of those guys. He's not like as vocal as KJ, but just the way he plays makes you feel a certain type of way watching him play. So, and this good stretch of games has been against Jonas, you know what I mean, and Zion, and yeah, obviously we're giving up a lot of points, and that's been the issue for the past 3 weeks or however many weeks. But what we can contribute from the offensive point of view, like all that kind of stuff, there's a lot to be, to still be happy about, and as we're kind of progressing through this through this low season. I had said it last week or maybe the week before that we were gonna have a pretty clear idea of where our new home's gonna be because we were playing the teams right around us, and now we've kind of settled down into that 14 spot, and doesn't really look like. I mean, who maybe I mean Houston could probably overtake us, but I mean who else is dropping down there? I mean, let me see. OKC. I mean, the Lakers will probably continue to slowly edge their way up into that play-in talks. I don't know. Do you guys see? Do you guys see Utah continuing to fall?
That's what I was gonna say. Utah's falling right now, so there's a chance that they start to like fall back down. Um, I definitely think everybody was talking about how they could kind of see Utah being like more consistent, and to me, I never saw that. Like I never really saw like the ideas of like Jordan Clarkson and Laurie Markkinen keeping up the production that they were doing. So I was like, okay, well, at some point they are gonna kind of settle just a little bit, and by that point. Are the rest of the Utah Jazz players going to be able to pick up whatever Laurie Markkinen's not putting down? And so I think that Utah's going to start to fall down.
Yeah.
Not nearly as hard as we are, but maybe start to slowly find their way out of like a play-in spot towards the end of the season kind of
Yeah,
thing.
but even so, like, yeah, I mean, we're just this is gonna be where we live. I don't know about the Mavericks. Like to be 9-9, that's a little crazy. That's a little crazy to be honest. But
Did did y'all
go ahead.
see the play at the end of the game for Luca? I literally
When they
saw it
the
like earlier.
Raptors or
Yeah, with the
no,
Raptors.
no.
So Luca gets double teamed. He gives it to Maxi Kleber, and like they have like plenty of open shots, and they somehow turn the ball over. And
Mm.
they needed a three to like to tie, and so like Maxi had like a wide open lane, but like the ball just it like somehow some way his teammates just found a way to turn the ball over, and it was.
They're missing Brunson or what?
I mean, yeah, they're just like they're to me it's I feel like Juan said this a lot, but they're just a Houston Rockets 2.0, So you let Luca do everything, and then Luca tried to not be the shot taker at the end of the game, and look what happened to it. So it was just like it was just rough to see because there's like Luca's super talented, but that team as a whole just isn't as prepared compared
Yeah.
to how they've been before. I think it's crazy to think about the fact that these guys are in the Western Conference Finals last year. But it should tell you how good Luka Doncic is.
Sure.
Hmm.
Sure.
To me, that's perfect. But yeah, as we're wrapping up, is there anything for the Spurs that you guys would like to see? Anything that you're tired of seeing?
I would just say continued health for Zach Collins. I'm glad that he's back. He's looked pretty okay in terms of his movement. Uh, no hate or no disrespect to Russell Westbrook. I hope he's okay with his head. I do disagree with the flagrant two.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean he bid on the fake, so obviously you put him in a position like almost a powerless position, as gravity is going to come right back down. He hits a lot of ball, he hits a lot of arm, and his arm is just way bigger than yours, so he hit you in the head. It happens. But I hope he stays healthy, especially if Yak's going to miss any time. I have no idea. That's probably going to be terrible for us, but
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt he's missing time. The way
Yeah, I
this
mean, I was surprised Doug came back. To be honest, Doug tweaked his ankle the other day, and I think I was watching the game with you on, and I was like, oh, for sure, Pop's sitting Doug out for like the next 2 weeks.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I was surprised that he came back, but I wouldn't be surprised if Yak does stay out. So if he does, I'm hoping Zach can come in and at the very least just feel like he has an opportunity now to get minutes, to get back in rhythm, and start to find himself a little bit more. Even if that's all he takes out of it, or that's all we get out of it, sure. Malachi got a chance to play a little bit. I like his just catch and shoot mentality. So I would hope if there's ever a moment that we get a chance to see him and put him on the court, I hope that we can try to find some of that. Especially if we're okay with just sending weird lineups out there. I'm okay with getting Malachi out of Austin and seeing what he's got. That's kind of it. Shout out to Alizé in Austin.
Yeah, he's going off.
Yeah. So I'm glad like. we had him on the roster, let him go. Like, I think it was kind of a plan. Like, we're gonna let you go, we're gonna pick you up on this end, and then still give you some opportunity to, So, uh, there's a lot of stuff happening, even though the main games are not going the way we want them to. It is what it is.
All right, Juan.
Just I'd like our team to be competing and not getting blown out by 30 or just like looking terrible and kind of giving the game away. The last couple of games against the Lakers and they're fighting. They just make mistakes and they kind of shoot themselves in the foot. And I don't know. It's not frustrating, but it's frustrating. Like you want to see the guys compete and win. Um, and I get a little tired of the same little mistakes, even just like swipe down fouls and then they get an and one bucket off because it's not like it's not a real foul and it's like we still have to let these guys sit here and learn that. Like
Yeah,
if you're
yeah.
gonna foul a guy, foul him.
And it was happening in the Lakers game at a point where it was like we were having to make 3-pointers, and then you'd give up a and one foul,
Yeah.
and then you give the 3 points right back. You know what I mean? And we hit a lot of threes at the end of the game, but I mean,
Yep.
we make ourselves work so hard.
Yeah. So, hopefully just one day, just like I'd like to see at some point this season a good stretch of not doing stuff like that. Figuring out a way to close out games, and we don't have to win 20 out of 25 games, but I'd like to see us string together a couple of wins and see this team grow. See that growth in action.
Okay, for sure. No, I get that. Well, I'm gonna finish it off with a quick question. We don't have to go too far into this. I just want to know how you're feeling on the vets through this month. Does it make you feel like you're like in a sense ready to just trade them? You're more like I need these guys on this team to keep us going. Like what? Just real quick, what do you think on that, Chris?
I mean, I first of all, like from just this month, my thoughts on the vets haven't changed at all. Um, just like their utility is what their utility is. Our lineups have been so inconsistent that it's not like we can rely on them to be glue guys from the bench. We can't, you know what I mean? Like sometimes, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like their roles are all up and down too. We had to see Josh Richardson play point guard for a while and then he was out, you know what I'm saying? So like it's just been so inconsistent. So but for sure, yeah, at this point, the closer we get to February, then yeah, I mean, let's make the right move in terms of the business side of it. And we'll play with whoever we got on the court. That's been our mantra the whole year anyway, right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of where I'm at. Mainly probably because of injuries. Like that's where it's at. It's like, well, if we're just going with whoever we got, then it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I agree. It's Josh has missed a lot of time and Doug's missed some time and like just throwing everybody in and out of lineups. It's kind of frustrating and I'm kind of to the point where like, yeah, if they're there, that's cool. But like the offense flowed so well that first week, and it's because everybody was hitting their shots and everybody was healthy. And it's just hard for Josh and Doug like to force them. All right, like now, like when they are out there, like you have to be like a guy, like the guy, the one, the number 2 option on the court right now. And you can kind of see them force a little bit of action. Josh Richardson a little bit more than that than Doug
Yeah.
in that sense. And it's not their fault, so I'm not going to judge them off of performances like that because they're out there trying to make the most of what they got out there on the lineups. When Josh Richardson's a point and then Kata's the 2 and Isaiah Roby's the 3, and it's like there's not really much that can really happen. And I'm not going to judge them. I think they bring a lot of good stuff in the locker room.
Yeah.
Their vibes, they're always happy. They're always rooting for the guys. Neither one of them look too upset when they're on the bench because some other guy's getting like some run. And so it's good. But like I guess what I was trying to say is like this team already, like kind of like what Chris said, this team's already like kind of throwing out whoever. So if it comes down to them leaving the team at some point, then it'll kind of feel the same. Like,
yeah, it'll feel the same. And you're right, Amanda. Like last night, it was very apparent. It was like get Doug the ball and let him shoot it and see if we can make it. You know what I mean? But then it was funny because I'm down with that mindset. He's one of our best shooters. He's taller than most of the guys, so his looks are probably gonna be the best out of all those shooters that were out there at the end of the game anyway. But Then Malachi catches a ball when the game's out of hand and lets a corner three go, and it was quick. Very decisive, knocks the three down. And as soon as he did that, I was like, I would rather have seen him take all of Doug's shots at the end of the game and see if those go in. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
it is what it is. If we end up just moving on from those guys and see what we got in some of our other dudes, I'm cool with that.
Yeah. Well,
Oh, shout out to Lonnie
just
before we leave. Shout out to Lonnie. He had a good week.
shout
Oh,
shout
of
out to
course he
Lonnie.
did.
Of
Um,
course, yeah.
I mean, whenever I watched Lonnie play this week, it was definitely a thing of just like, well, he looks exactly to me like exactly what I thought he would look like, and it was just, he was on it for one game, and then he was like, a little bit off it for a little bit, and then like it was just like Lonnie to me, like
Well,
he's found his
he,
role.
he does look a little bit more consistent, but what do you know? It's a young player with another year under his belt, and he looks better. Like
Exactly.
that's how it works. And I was a little disappointed moving on from him so quickly, but they had a bunch of other young guys and Blake and Malachi coming in, so it's just like it kind of felt like it like was going to happen no matter what. But of course, like I'm willing to bet he was just I'm gonna burn these guys, and he did. He made us lose both games because on the first game or the second game he was on fire on that Friday night. There
Yeah.
in San Antonio. And then the third game, he was kind of slow to start the first half, and it was like, oh yeah, maybe it's one of those things with Lonnie, like on fire one night, cold the next. But then he hit like a bunch of clutch shots, like threes, driving to the basket, layups over Keldon, and it was just like,
Yeah.
yeah,
He lost the ball, recovered the ball, and shot the ball all in the air.
yeah. And it's like we love Lonnie. We knew that he's capable of that, and I'm sure he would have been able to do that stuff with our guys. But of course, he's doing it on the freaking Lakers, and he's burning us. So
But I mean, to have the responsibility. I mean, that team for years has been okay. Well, they're good, but they have no shooting, right? Or they're good, but they have nothing outside of their stars. So for him to come in and they basically kind of slotted him into that third position. You know what I mean?
mhm.
And his first two positions, those first two guys, who knows when either one of them is going to be playing or not playing. So he does have a lot of like pressure on him over there. So for him to be having a pretty good year, the team is going to find their way at some point, probably. Their timeline's different, right? They just got to get right by postseason, probably. So, you know,
Mhm.
but just wanted to give him some love. I know he came and did some stuff for our community again for Thanksgiving weekend. He talked about how his mom still lives here and he still has family here and all that kind of stuff too. So, I'm glad he had a good week. A good week. He said he enjoyed time with his family and got a chance to reminisce with his teammates and da da da. And he even said it too. He goes, and our team got 3 wins, so I feel like that's a win for me. I'm like, yeah, good for sure.
Yeah, yep. Good
There
on
you go.
him.
Yeah, shout out Lonnie. I'm sure Josh is happy right now. Josh is like, well, Josh is like probably like both like livid and happy. Livid that he torched us, livid that he's on the Lakers, but happy that Lonnie is like, succeeding kind of stuff. But yeah, as we wrap it up, I gotta say that we go live at 10 a.m.s on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, all on Sundays. Sorry, uh, all of which that you can catch us live, and then if you can't catch us live right as we're going, the VODs will be on all 3 platforms shortly thereafter. Make sure that you do follow us on Twitter at Heroes Half Court, where we do talk about the Spurs during the games and through the weeks. We do love to have the engagement. We do love to talk Spurs basketball with the community. So make sure that you reach out to us and talk some ball. But with that being said, guys, I hope everybody has a wonderful, blessed Sunday. The Cowboys had one of the highest national, or what was it, like the nationally watched games, something like that, in
Yeah,
NFL history for a
42
regular season game. So shout out to Dallas Cowboys. Always going to be a wonderful sight to see whenever we're prospering and stuff like that. So we'll get Odell soon. But
hopefully.
with that being said, I hope everybody has a wonderful, blessed Sunday, and we are out. Peace.